can stand it. So hi, I'm Steve Moss. I'm running for Supervisor in District 10. I first came to housing in a professional sense when I got hired by the Bank of America to write the report Beyond Sprawl, which was one of their breakthrough reports that essentially said that sprawl was bad. And what made it breakthrough was that Bank of America sponsored and published the report. A financial institution that had a stake in mortgages actually stepped up and said sprawl is bad for the economy and for the environment. I then did a considerable amount of work for the American Farmland Trust, similarly looking at sprawl and its destruction of California farmland. And through those reports, I investigated a lot of elements around how to create smart growth, better density, better communities. But one thing that stuck in my head, which was this. The most important factor in drawing people to housing are good schools. It's really about the schools. If you find a good school, you find high property values, or you find people who want to be in that school district. So there's this intimate connection between housing and education. I think we need to keep that in mind as we build out San Francisco. Now, I've knocked on a lot of doors, just like a lot of my fellow candidates have, so I've seen a lot of different housing stock, and probably the one I despise most, because I can't get into any of them when I knock on a door, are these high-rises. In District 10, they don't tend to be high, but they're closed, and they're impossible to penetrate in a democratic fashion. So I, as a candidate, have grown to really dislike them, though I understand their purpose. But I do think that we need to start thinking about how do you make large buildings more accessible to a community? How do you have more of an ebb and flow between high density, high rises, and the ability to actually interact with neighborhoods? The housing, there's a lot of housing stock I like. One that I'm intrigued by is the new Armstrong development on 3rd Street. I don't really necessarily like the financial model associated with it, which we can talk about. But what I am very interested in, first of all, they're very tight, small units that are well designed, that seem quite livable. And second, it provides kind of an open space, and I'll finish up with this. This provides kind of an open common space that is structured in order to engender communal living, in a sense. It's almost like common housing. I actually don't know whether it's going to work. And I'm very curious to see whether it does, because if it does, I think it's a very interesting model to replicate. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Tony.
Sure. I'm going to keep it cozy. I almost don't feel like I this microphone. I work in theater, so I believe in the power of the unamplified human voice, but here we are. So I'm Tony Kelly, and I know a bunch of people in this room, partially because we've spent some time in the past 8 years giving each other hell. And let's be clear about why that is. Working a lot, especially on Market Octavia, Eastern neighborhoods, and some of the big area plans that have happened in the past 8 years. Well, one of the reasons we have these fights is because there's been a real missing part, and that is public investment. And the argument that we've been sort of forced into by City Hall, frankly, is who should pay for infrastructure. And we get put into a situation where the only folks who can pay for infrastructure in complete neighborhoods are either impact fees from development or voluntary taxes taken on by the neighborhood. And that's really a very short-sighted conversation. And one of the things that actually pushed me off the fence and into running was the way that the Eastern Neighborhoods process resolved when tax income and financing was taken off the table. It's like, well, wait a minute. I saw NIMBYs created from scratch during that process. A bunch of folks who were in support of development were then saying, well, if the city's not going to be a partner in this and development doesn't pay for itself with its impact fees and we can't make up the gaps because of previous developments like live-work lofts, what are we doing, and who on earth would actually accept this? We need a different system to do that, and the public sector needs to be more involved, and so we need to change the folks in the public sector in order to do that, and that's one of the reasons I'm up here before you right now. Very quickly, a project I like, a project I don't like. I'll mention the street park as one I like. I worked on it, and I worked in support of it. It was a very sensitive development for its historical value. They used the actual lumber from the oldest street building on that site. They did a great job of communicating with the community. Hey, Debra. And we also got some important help about a street park, the actual park, and make that livable too. So that's one I would support. And then for one I don't, well, we do have 1 or 2 live-work lofts in our neighborhood, but I'll also mention the public housing. We have the worst public housing in the city, and we have to really rebuild them immediately because it's actually killing us to do that. You have a very long question for an opening statement.
We'll come back to it, I assure you.
All right.
This won't be your only bite at the apple. Malia.
Oh, okay, I was waiting for an introduction. Good evening. I'm curious to know, just by a show of hands, how many homeowners do we actually have in this room? Right, don't be ashamed, raise high, okay, okay. And how many renters do we have in this room? Okay, so it looks like we might have a few more renters.
How many homeless then?
Oh, that's a
Neither
great
of the
question.
above.
How many homeless do we have in the room? All right, we've got 2 homeless. That, you know, this is an informal survey, but I use it to kind of highlight my statement on the need for housing. Now, there's a couple things that we're dealing with here. The median price for a San Francisco home is approximately $636,000. $636,000. And only 39% of the residents in San Francisco actually own their own home. Now, let me tell you a personal story. Back in 2006, in the height of the housing bubble, I purchased a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. And for the last several years, I have watched the market fall. And I know personally my own finances have been decimated, and I dealt with the issue of foreclosure, but I stand before you as not only an advocate, but also still a homeowner, because I was able to fight the bank tooth and nail and rescind that foreclosure process. And through that process, and what has it actually done is opened my eyes to a very stark reality. And the reality is last year, only in the Bayview, 1,400 homes were lost. And this year to date, approximately 1,200 homes will be lost to foreclosure. So it's very timely that we start to have this conversation about housing. And in particular, we need to specifically start to think about middle income housing, because very rarely do you see advocates that are standing up and fighting for homeowners. And homeowners in San Francisco, not just in the southeast part of San Francisco, but are in a very precarious situation. And much like Stephen Moss said about building a correlation between schools and home ownership, there's also jobs. We've got double-digit unemployment rate. So when we begin to talk about home ownership and housing mix in the city, we need to also address comprehensively pathways to careers, pathways to proper education. My name is Malia Cohen. I'm a candidate running for supervisor in District 10, and a large part of the reason why I'm running is because enough is enough. I'm tired of seeing homes lost. I'm tired of seeing the city and the elected members of the body that serve our city not doing anything for the homeowners here in San Francisco. I think that the tenants and renters have fantastic advocacy. That's the signal.
That's not a fist, that's a wrist one,
That's a
by the
signal.
way.
I think that we can wrap it up. I encourage you to come, please visit my website or contact me. I won't be able to be with you throughout the duration of this conversation, but it's a very important conversation that I'd like to continue to have with you. Thank you.
Ms. Sweet.
Thank you. I am Lynette Sweet, and like everybody else sitting up here, I'm running for the Board of Supervisors, but I think we have a different district up here now, too.
Well,
So.
we're going to be informal, it's going to...
Okay, well, I'm in District 10, and I'm a former redevelopment commissioner. I happen to be the president of the redevelopment commission when San Francisco did its 1996 affordable housing bond, and it was $100 million. So I got a chance to sign off on that, and it was wonderful because what we were able to bring to San Francisco was affordable home ownership, and not just for regular folks. We did AIDS housing, we did youth housing, we did a little bit of everything with that. So as a homeowner who actually bought a home in Bayview Hunters Point, I can attest to the fact that home ownership is what grounds people to their communities. It's what gives you that investment in your community, and I want to see more of that happen, especially in District 10. Right now, Malia is correct, we had 1,400 homes foreclosed on, and that's unheard of. I'm a former banker out in Bayview Hunters Point, and when I was in banking, what I tried to make people understand is get a fixed rate home mortgage. Do not go for these adjustable rates. And one of my former employees is here, and she's attesting to that because it didn't make sense. And I tried to make people understand having that mortgage payment that you could know what it was going to be was all important. So having said that, I can tell you what I like about some of the homeowners, some of the developments in District 10. One that I'm extremely proud of, one that I love, is the Providence Foundation Senior Housing. It's on the corner of McKinnon and 3rd, and what it did was I love it because a church, Providence Baptist Church, gave up its parking lot to provide senior housing. And it's good senior housing. It's communal living. It's only 50 units, and we did it because it was just that important. We did it because housing for seniors is so important. And one of the questions, or one part of the question was, what are your 3 priorities? Well, my first priority would be to continue with affordable home ownership in Bayview Hunters Point through getting jobs. Time's up? Okay, well, getting the jobs. But second would be to ensure that we continue the legacy of Dr. George Davis, who was also in the district, with senior housing. But the most important piece, and I'm going to make sure I stop with this, would be the jobs piece. And we have to make sure that the folks who are living in this community, living in this district, are able to buy some of the homes that are online. We have 10,500 homes that are slated to be built in the shipyard. Those homes are going to range from very low affordability to market rate. But we want to make sure that we build our own middle class in order to get that to happen. So my name is Lynette Sweet. I am running for District 10 Supervisor, and thank you.
And coming up, just recently we had Debra Walker in District 6. Debra, we're mixing it up because it's hard to hold on to them. So what I'd ask for is a 2-minute opening statement that identifies who you are and your views on housing and land use, housing development in your district that you like or do not like and the reasons why, and then the 3 top housing priorities that you see in your district and perhaps in the city.
Thank you. I'm sorry I'm late. I had another forum I had to go to. We're all hopping around to all these different events until November 2nd. My name is Debra Walker, and I'm running for District 6 Supervisor. Welcome to District 6. You are right now in District 6. It's comprised of Treasure Island, all of Soma, Mission Bay, a little bit of North Mission, a little bit of Hayes Valley, a little bit of Western Addition, all of Tenderloin, the Civic Center, one of the most diverse areas, one with probably the most zoning distinctions. Anybody who has done development or knows about planning realizes the complication of these zoning districts and the potential conflict for the areas where we have not done so well at planning buffer areas and for instance, some of the lowest income housing and the services that provide a better way of life to the folks living in some of the most affordable housing right up next to high-end retail and tourism. We have the potential for conflicts between entertainment venues and some high-end housing. We have whole neighborhoods being built in South Beach, Rincon area that are being stalled because of the economy, where the neighborhood has not been built out, and in some places the transit and the pedestrian areas are very much underdeveloped at this point. So we have a lot of issues in District 6. I have lived and worked in this district for over 25 years. For the good part of the last decade, I've served as a building commissioner on the Building Inspection Commission, representing the tenant community, focusing a lot on increasing habitability of some of our most low-income housing, the SROs, a lot of the rent-controlled buildings. We have worked on creating and institutionalizing code enforcement in these buildings to try and increase habitability. I was just over at Glide, who runs some amazing programs. There's a lot of, in this district, a lot of new focus on the type of housing that I'm going to focus on. One of the projects I really like in the district is the Mosaic Project. It's created the opportunity for partnerships between nonprofit and for-profit and business, job-producing businesses. I would like to talk a lot more about that tonight, those type of buildings, and I look forward to doing that with you, and thank you all for being here.
And our newest arrival